So what will a monopolist choose? And the answer is, if we're looking here at a diagram, we've got the perfectly competitive solution right down at their QPC and PPC. So that's where the demand curve and the marginal cost curve cross. So that would have been, what would the perfectly competitive market supply if the perfectly competitive market had kind of the supply curve or cost curves of the monopolist? The answer is they'd supply QPC and what does the monopolist choose? The important answer is not that. The monopolist chooses something different because actually this choice makes the monopolist more money. So the monopolist basically jacks the price up to PM and reduces the quantity to QM. So the monopolist makes that blue area the producer surplus, which is the difference between the price at which they sell cups of coffee and what it costs to make them, to make that blue area as big as possible. Because that's what the monopolist is trying to do. Make as much money as a monopolist can. Okay, so the book spends a little bit of time talking about ethics. So what can we say about ethics here? So the monopolist is doing as well as he can. What's happened to consumers? How are consumers doing? What do they see when they go into this market? They see that actually the cups of coffee have gone up in price and the number of cups of coffee have gone down. So as a consumer, are you better off or worse off because of that? Well, you're worse off, right? The more money you pay for coffee, the less money you have available to buy other things. And the fewer cups of coffee you have, the less joy you have from cups of coffee. So consumers are unilaterally worse off here. The monopolist is better off. Is this wrong? Is it fair? Is another question. I don't know. It's hard to say, actually. Where will this money go? The extra money, all this profits that the monopolist makes. Well, it depends what the monopolist is. It might be CSU, right? Or the monopolist might be Caltex. Or the monopolist might be the federal government, in many cases. Is it unfair the federal government is raising prices on people and cutting back the quantity to raise more government revenues? Well, it's very hard to say. So ethically, I think this is just a bit of a nightmare. We can say it's not the best thing socially. As a society, we'd prefer that the prices be lower and output be higher. But ethically, I don't think there's nothing that economists are prepared to say. But we can definitely say a few things, and that's that consumers are worse off. The monopolist acts in the monopolist's best interest, and that hurts consumers by jacking prices up and creating, in a sense, an artificial scarcity in this good. So if you had a consumer choice, you'd say, no, that's not what I want. Okay. So here's my rant again about textbooks. So if you read the textbooks, there's all sorts of lines in there. I don't want you to focus on the lines because I want you guys to understand the concepts. And what's important? Well, the important things are these four, right? That monopoly price is higher than perfectly competitive price. That's what we got there. The PM is higher than the PPC. Monopoly quantity is lower, so the monopolist is artificially, in a sense, making a scarcity. That profits, the artificial scarcity, the reduction in quantity, profits the monopolist because the monopolist gets to charge more. Right? So the quantity supplied under a monopoly is going to be less than under perfect competition. The reason is because that's what's in the best interest of the monopolist. Producer surplus or profits is higher for the monopoly, and consumer surplus, which we'll talk about in a later lecture, is lower, meaning consumers are worse off. Consumers are paying more money for fewer cups of coffee. Consumers are worse off, monopolists are better off. And the monopolists can make an awful lot of money here, as we'll talk about in a little bit. You can add in a lot more curves. So the book adds in what's called a marginal revenue curve. And there's something going on there where basically where the marginal revenue and marginal cost curves intersect, that'll tell you what the predictive quantity is in a monopoly diagram. Okay, you can learn that if you want to, but for me it's not essential. For me, the essential intuition is just this. It's going to be, what is the predicted behavior in these two markets? So what does a monopoly market look like compared to perfect competitive? right? So you can go ahead and learn those diagrams if you wish, but for me, this is really the core thing. Okay, you may lose a few points here and there if you don't put your marginal cost and marginal revenue curves in. I'm not that interested. So everything that you need to know has been sort of portrayed in these diagrams up to here.